You don't need magic to disappear for a while, because Firestone tires were built for ticking off mile markers. Firestone Destination LE3 tires for 70,000 miles of exploring. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
Community makes McMahon's Best One stand out from the competition. The company was founded in 1969 by Pat McMahon, who bought out a local independent tire dealer in Fort Wayne, Indiana, with the help of his good friend, Paul Zurcher. Pat built a strong foundation for the business, and today his son, Bubba, who grew up in the tire business, now owns it with Randy Geyer, a longtime employee. Bubba's wife, Kim, is now president of McMahon's Best One, and together they are pushing the limits on what it means to be an independent tire dealer. With 13 locations and counting, McMahon has close-knit ties to the community it serves and is elevating the professionalism in our industry to thrive in the future. Welcome to Johnny G and Friends. I'm Johnny G, and on today's podcast, we're joined by my good friends, Bubba and Kim McMahon, son and daughter-in-law of the founder of McMahon's Best One Tire in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Pat McMahon, who will be a special guest later in this podcast. Bubba and Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Bubba, your dad started the business in 1969. What are some of the early memories of you growing up?
Well, I've never had another job, never had an interview. It's always been at work with my dad. And he used to take me to work on Saturdays, pay me $1, 25 cents an hour back in the day to clean up and learn how to mount tires and stuff like that, which was great. And then when a load of tires came in that you sold, Pat, I used to take all the kids at the high school and bring them back in. We'd unload the truck and then go back to school back in the days.
Did he pay you cash underneath the table, or did you have to claim it?
No, it was always cash. He always had a drawer of cash. Always had a drawer of cash.
I love it. I love it. So you went to Valparaiso University, and you got a business degree, but you also found out your bride there. Huh? Can you tell me how the two of you met?
Yes. Being an athlete there, I had to take gym, and the gym teacher happened to be the tennis coach. So for my final, I had to go watch a tennis match. And at the tennis match, I had to write a little article about it to get a good grade. So I went and watched my lovely wife of 37 years play tennis. And while she was playing, her shoe broke. So she literally kicked it off, played with one shoe on, played number one singles as a freshman. And I watched it, wrote an article, and I was like, she's cute. So it started from there.
I love it. I love it. At a tennis match. How about that? That's pretty cool. So, Kim, you were studying finance when you met Bubba, is that right?
Yes.
So
yes.
How did you make your way from finance into the tire business?
Well, I worked at a bank for 20 years. I was a vice president in the trust department, and the bank got bought out, and they moved the whole trust department down to Indianapolis. So I was looking for a job and thought this would be an opportunity. And I went to Pat and said, what do you think about this? He was all in. He was very excited about it. At least that's my recollection.
Oh, that's great. So you and Bubba had already been married then many years?
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So now I also understand that there's a good story when you first joined the business with my good friend and founder of Best One, Paul Zurcher. Can you talk about that story?
Yeah, so Pat said we need to sell Paul on this. So I was like, okay. So we were at French Lick and we were on the porch. You remember the porch with the big rocking chairs, and everybody was sitting there and relaxing. And Mr. Lampy and Paul were in a corner. And Pat said, let's go get him. So I went over there with Pat and Kim, and Mr. Lampy and Paul were talking. And I said, Paul, Kim wants to come join the company and be a part of it. And Paul got very, very excited and said he approved it. So she got hired in French Lick, Indiana.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, that's great. And my old boss there, John Lampy, just had some lunch with him in Nashville. He's doing great and said to say hello to all the Zurcher Best One family.
That's awesome.
So I'm going to switch over for a few minutes, Bubba and Kim, and talk to your dad, and I'll come back and join you shortly, all right?
Okay.
So, Pat, I figured out we've known each other for a little over 40 years. And if I would have said to you, let's go back to 1982 when we first met, someday, Pat, sometime in the future, there's going to be something called a podcast. And it's going to be on something called the internet that your kids, your grandkids, and all your friends will be able to watch this conversation today on something called a computer, and that this would be around till the end of time. What would you have said to that some 40 years ago?
No chance. No chance. Anymore. There's a picture I got back here of the original store, and they've got an $8 break special, which I don't think we're going to have to see that anymore either.
Now, is that the famous one that Raymond Firestone built X amount of those with the chapel or something?
Yeah, they've got a people. It looks like a church, and it's now a Starbucks, believe it or not. But when Raymond Firestone built that in 1929, and he built about 30 of them in the country, and there's only one left, and that's it. City of Fort Wayne, it's also called the City of Churches. So the city thought it would be appropriate to keep that design. So they paid Starbucks additional money just to design the store that way. So if you get down here, you get a chance to look at it.
All right, we'll go to Starbucks. Love it.
Or get an $8 break job.
Yeah, exactly. That ain't happening no more. But Pat, you served our country from 1957 to 1959 in the Army. I believe it was in Guam. First of all, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And so how did that experience in the Army influence who you are today?
Well, at the time, you wouldn't recall this, but they were still drafting people, and I hadn't decided what I wanted to do in college. So I thought I'd take a couple of years off to get my service done because I was going to get drafted anyway. So I did that before college. And I got to say, in the Army, I met a lot of wonderful guys. Most of them were older, drafted, married, and they influenced a lot of the way I think and what I think of people. And you learn certain things about people that you didn't know before.
And probably a lot of disciplines too, huh?
Yeah, some.
So while you were in college, attending Wayne State University out in Detroit, one of your friends helped you get a job with Firestone. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, a good friend of mine was in teaching, and he was going to start student teaching, so he had to find somebody to replace him. And he worked at the Firestone wholesale store at the north end of the campus at Wayne. So he wanted to know if I would be interested in taking his position over. So I did, and I started that actually in the first year of college and went all the way through with Firestone, similar to Bubba with the job he got. He started one place and stayed there forever.
So you got tire dust in your blood early on, and then when you graduated from college, then what?
Well, of course, back in the 60s, that was the time of IBM and Xerox and all the big ones just growing up. So we had interviews with them. But I always knew in my heart I had Firestone there for sure. And I was more comfortable with them because I've been working for them so long. So it was pretty much a conclusion that I would work for them unless I really got a big offer.
Gotcha. So how did you then become friends with your business associate and friend, Paul Zurcher? When did that all come about?
Well, I had worked for Firestone for 10 years. They had moved me from Detroit down to Evansville to try to make a store profitable, which hadn't made money since the World War II ended. So with the help of Al Gumpertz, Dot McKenzie, and Paul Weaver, and Swentzel was in town too, we turned it around in about a year and a half. And I thought I was going to get promoted, but we finally made money, but they found a hidden charge, an out of period charge that went back about 15 years, which is about $40,000. So the profit that I made was wiped out by this $40,000 charge. I got mad and I quit. And they called me into Akron to go through the chairs. But the thing was, in the morning, they thought I was being interviewed for a new job in Indianapolis as a supervisor. But in the afternoon, they found out I was there to quit. So the the whole day kind of changed a little bit. Then my old boss in Detroit bought this Firestone store in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and found out that I had quit. So he hired me as a second man, and that was already part of the Zurcher group. And he left after 3 years, and then I was associated with Paul from then on because somebody had to run his store, so he gave me the job.
Well, you definitely had the A team there with McKenzie and Gumberts and Weaver and Swensel. I mean, that's a big crew right there.
Yeah, Swensel and I used to play bridge with Lena and Joanne, and we were known as the Hawk and the Vulture because we just sit back and set them to beat the band, and they used to get very mad with us. And we used to call Brooks Bricks. That's what Bubba called him, Bricks Swensel.
I love it. I can't wait to see him next time. I'm going to do that. So, how did the Best One name come about?
Well, that was interesting, John. We had originally wanted to call all the Zurcher Group Premier Tire and Service or whatever, and the name Premier belonged to Michelin, and Michelin said they would let us use the name Premier for retread shops, but not for retail because they had bought the Fisk line and they had a tire called Premier. So we had to come up with a new name. So we were sitting in Bob Evans in Fort Wayne, Mark Zurcher and John Miller and myself, and trying to figure out what kind of a name we could come up with that we could go to market with. So we looked across the street and there was a Best Buy. So we kind of said, well, that wouldn't be too bad. Best something or another, and we came up with Best One. And that's how the name was thought up originally. But it was kind of interesting because they had the Zurcher Group had a big rollout for the name Best One. They had a hotel and invited a couple hundred Zurcher members, and they hired a comedian to come out and MC the show. And he comes out, first thing he says, I can't believe a group this big has finally decided to market themselves named after the best battle in the Battle of the Bulge, Bastogne. and John Miller and myself and Mark Zurcher kind of, well, we didn't intend that, but there it is. So that's how that got started. And the little fella in the middle, Screech, that was an idea from Ray Monteith, who had been in Detroit and saw that on a General Dealer's logo, I think. And his name should have been Max Mileage instead of Screech. So that's kind of like a little bit of the Best One background.
That's a great story and a great logo. And you guys have done really well bringing the whole group together. Absolutely. So how did you meet Lena, your bride of 62 years, and what was her role in the business?
Well, after I got out of the Army, I went to a meeting at a church, a teenage group, and she was there, and that's pretty much she said she saw me coming down the stairs and she thought I was attractive. Things have changed. But anyway, that's the first time I met her was in the basement of the church with a teen group, and we kind of got together after a certain amount of time and got engaged and got married 62 years ago.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, you tell her I miss doing all those dances we did at all the Zurcher meetings over the years, Indy 500, etc., because we always got a lot of dances in.
She did a lot of pinching too.
That she did.
Yeah, ask Mario Andretti about that. Anyway, when she worked for the company, she and Bubba were together with me, and I kind of guided her along with she did the credit application, the books, the whole thing. And of course, every once in a while, she had her disagreements with her son, and they would go on for maybe 15, 20 minutes, a little back and forth between Italian and Irish. And then finally, she would say, I'm your mother, so shut up. And that pretty much ended the thing.
Can't wait to ask Bubba about his side.
Yeah, we couldn't have got through it all without her. No question.
That's awesome. Well, you tell her I said hello.
We'll do it.
So, any words of advice to my listeners on business today?
Well, I think if you're trying to plan a future, it's pretty hard to do unless you really know what you want to do. You just want to keep yourself open for opportunities, and when they come up, you want to jump them and give them your best shot, and you'll find out whether you can do it or not. It's just the way I think you'd be at the right place at the right time, and things will work out for you.
Keep your options open. That's awesome. That's well said, Pat. Well said.
Okay.
Well, listen, Pat, I want to thank you so much for being on Johnny G and Friends. I'm going to go back to Bubba and Kim, but you stay healthy, my friend, and keep in touch.
Thanks for having me, John, hat and all.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Yep.
Bye-bye. So, Bubba, you grew up in the Best One family and feel that its business model has longevity. Tell us about why you feel that.
The number one asset I feel with the Best One business model is that the owners live in the town that they work. So we live in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We are the owners and we're here every day and we live here. And I think that the business model you'll find spread out of all the Best One locations is the ownership lives in the town that this store is. And I think you're not going to beat us when we get up in the morning. So this is where we live and this is where we're at. So I think that's a huge advantage for us.
Relationships are everything, right?
Yes. People buy from people.
Yep. Oh, I heard that once or twice before. So, Kim, what are your thoughts about being part of the Best One family?
I think there's so many benefits to it because you have the ability you're running your own business, but you have so many different things that that Best One brings, whether it's just the experience of the Zurcher family, the experience of other partners, and the whole gamut of Tina with the legal help and employee benefits, human resources, anything that you need to help you is available. And that's just an incredible thing to be able to have when you're running your own business. You don't have to rely on just yourself. You have a whole team that can help you.
So your resources come from hundreds of retail shops across the Midwest and Northeast to help with anything that you might come up with. So you don't have to come up with a game plan yourself. You just pick up the phone and ask somebody, huh?
Someone else has been through it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
That's great. That's great. So, Bub and Kim, you are really innovative when it comes to training and technology. Can you give us an update on the Tech Center and how you're preparing for ADAS and EVs in the future here?
It's very exciting. We have really taken a kind of an aggressive approach to this. We have brought in somebody to run our to open our Tech Center, which is it's essentially our training center, but we call it our Tech Center because it is all about technology. It's not just, it's not the old days where anyone can work on a vehicle. You really have to have an in-depth knowledge of technology. And so we opened our Tech Center with the idea that we want to bring in people into this into the industry who maybe weren't interested in cars, but may have a real be very ambitious about technology, because the two things people don't necessarily think those two things go together.
Right.
It's so if you have somebody who's an electrician or is there's just so many different ways that people can come into this business. We wanted to really open it up so that we get a whole new pool of people who may be interested in working with us. So we're very excited about it.
So if I'm a young guy and I don't want to get my hands dirty touching tires, I can come to you and go to your Tech Center, maybe learn about EVs or learn about all the stuff going on with cars and automatic driving and all that stuff. Is that right?
Yes, all of it. We do from the time that we hire people, they go through training. And it's not even just the training on, whether it's even how to mount a tire, how to get the car up on a lift, because we like to hire people that don't necessarily have experience in this industry. But it's also about our culture and professionalism. And, so it's not just about your job, it's about a career and wanting these employees to be a part of our company. So it's a pretty wide ranging training that we put everybody through, and it's ongoing.
So, this is my fourth season of Johnny G and Friends, and you're the first tire dealers that I've interviewed that have even thought about this, or I shouldn't say thought about it. Chapel Hill Tire, Mark Pons is got into that end of it, but there's not a lot of dealers that are focused on this piece, and you guys are really fine tuning it. That if I was one of my other best one members, I'd probably want to be sending some of my people to your school.
Well, and that's what I think that's what we will get to. This is our first full year of doing it. So I think by the end of 2024, 2025, we will probably expand to include other people as well.
And Johnny G, so as of now, Keegan's got 14 classes on the books, 12 people per class. And what's unique about this, other than just doing it online in the computers, as we talked about earlier with Pat, is teach an hour, we turn around, we have a car there, and we work on the car for an hour. We go back to teaching, you turn around, the car's there. So it's book on and just not book on. And I think that that's what's going to set us apart.
That's great. That's great. You definitely are far above what I've heard, with other dealers in the marketplace. So that's awesome. So, Bubba and Kim, what's next for McMahon's Best One Tire as far as growth strategy? Have you guys thought about that?
Well, as my dad talked about earlier, is we've been lucky. We've been able to purchase 4 different companies in the last 2 years. And if the opportunity's there to grow, that's we like growing. We like the McMahon culture. And so if the opportunity comes, we're going to continue to grow.
And you're in both retail, commercial, retreading too, or no?
Yes, retreading also.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, Bubba, I got to ask you a question. Working with family, working with spouses, how does that all work out?
It's unique because I've had to work with both my mom and dad. And I always called them Pat and Lena because I didn't want the silver spoon of, going to work and saying, hey, Dad, hey, Dad. And they're like, oh, that's his son. So then they immediately assume it's silver spoon. And then when you marry your wife and you have her come into the company also, and she, not being from the tire industry, the first thing she did was remove all the tires out of all 13 retail showrooms. There's no tires in any retail showrooms because she wanted to bring a touch of class into the tire industry. And she has done that. But she also, I'm sell my way out of anything. Johnny G, I've learned that I can sell. Kim learned I got to pay the bills. So it's kind of fun going back and forth, but we also have our quiet time where we stop talking about work, which is maybe an hour out of a 24-hour day. That's it.
And
that's my
your
take.
challenges, Kim, with working with family and Bubba?
I had no challenges working with Pat. Bubba and I are polar opposites completely. He's very macro. I'm much more micro. He wants to sell his way out of anything. I tried to explain that doesn't always work. It was tough at first, but it's been we eventually turned the corner, and now we can have very civil conversations and understand where each other are coming from, and it's obviously it's worked out pretty well so far.
Yeah, and you're married 37 years also, right?
Yes.
So interesting concept. I don't know, do your stores today have tires on the showroom floors or not?
This is something that really pains Pat, that he used to have tires everywhere. And it drives him crazy that we do not have tires in the showrooms anymore.
But I don't know who came
so
up.
bad.
But I don't know who, in defense of you, Kim, I don't know if you're aware of it, but just recently I got a flat tire and I had to go over to Discount Tire here down the street, and they don't have a tire on the showroom floor either. They just have, a waiting area with chairs and a thing with bottled water and say la vie. That's it. So they know what they're doing too.
I'm pretty sure they followed our lead.
I think so.
Can you hear me? Bell Tires got tires. Bell Tires got tires in their showroom, and of course we always did. I know, Kim, you don't like it because they smell like hell, but remember, that's the smell of money. That's
love
what that's what Lampy told me once. Told Lena that too.
I
She didn't
love
like
it.
the smell, but he said that's the smell of money.
Well, listen, sincerely, Bubba and Kim, I really, really appreciate you taking time out, and you too, Pat, for being on Johnny G and Friends. It's a blessing.
Thanks, John.
Good talking
Thank you, Johnny
Good
G.
seeing you again.
See ya. Be healthy, guys. Take care. So where are you going? Are you leaving to go make a bank deposit or something? Is that why you're putting your coat on?
Well, I'm gonna have lunch with my wife. It's cold in here too. There's no carpet. It's like being in a Russian prison.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it.
Oh, Troy, get the mic.
That'll be on my outtakes. I love it. I love it.
You don't need magic to disappear for a while, because Firestone tires were built for ticking off mile markers. Firestone Destination LE3 tires for 70,000 miles of exploring. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.